Hello, can you guys hear me? Oh, yes. Okay, perfect.
and see if Wendy's going to make it back in here.
Sorry.
So just take a couple of minutes because we've got a counselor that's having a bit of a nosebleed here, so. Inappropriate.
Then I didn't need this. I just wanted to clarify. Are you okay? I'm gonna have to dig that out of my ESS binder. Just to get
Everyone's voice scheduled is under delegation and agenda to the agenda item, or anything else wants to speak to any of the items tonight, then please sign up. Nice to meet you. Welcome to City Hall. You're one of the first executives. And I will sign you on.
I hope you be more listening when I
Essentially, it's a quasi-judicial process. You'll have a
Do you have two of those?
those?
Okay, and help.
ICBC used to they used to be, these are issued by ICBC.
How did I have one in my ESS binder, but I don't think to bring it to council.
It's just in my.
That worries me how much stuff might be in your bag.
Why do you happen to have that?
You want me to go check on Monday?
I think we're good. Thank you, everyone. We have a counselor that's got a bit of a bleeding nose, but we'll move ahead and hopefully she'll join us here in a minute. We'll keep an eye on her, make sure she's okay. Welcome everyone to the regular meeting of council Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Inkakatma and Silk people. Do we have any public input? Okay, thank you. Adoption of minutes, regular council meeting minutes, June 13th, 2023. Recommendations that the minutes of the regular council meeting be held on June 13th, 2023 be adopted. Councilor Petrozzi, Councilor Etchart, any mistakes, errors? Wendy's not in the room, so let's get this over quickly. So, are those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. No public hearing. Let's move on to 6.1, 2023 City of Merritt Council Scholarship Award. We have a young gentleman with us tonight, Riley Ware, who is the winner of this scholarship, and we recognize Riley Ware as the 2023 City of Merritt Council Scholarship recipient, and we would like to have him come forward. And if I could get him to come on up here, we'll take a picture.
You gotta turn around and smile a little. Just a little bit. Smile.
Just a little. You can do it.
Save money.
Save money. School. Teacher.
School. You just graduated.
Graduation, what a great time. On we move, 6.2, Merritt and District Chamber of Commerce, Margaret Honer to present. Margaret, please. I'll just get you to push that red button in front of you there. And you're live.
There we go. Hello, hello.
You're good to go.
Okay, great. I'm here again. To tell you what we've been doing with the Chamber, give you an update on the ETSI BC grant, And I'm coming back to ask for some funding and to consider putting another budget together, a line item for the rest of the projects that we're working on for the ETSI BC grant. So I'm sure you guys read what I submitted, but the last time that I was here, I discussed with you that we did get the ETSI BC grant of $75,000, but that they made it very clear after making me rewrite it several times that the money was only for a person. And so we went forward with it anyhow. Circumstances were such that you still did not have your budget approved for this year. So we couldn't really get an answer as to if there would be any money to help out with this from economic development or anything. So we plunged ahead and just went for it, right? So we received it. We just got our contract on June 15th. They'll give us $60,000 and then another $15,000 at the end, so in a year and a half, end of December of next year. And it is only, to be spent on basically wages and a few other things, right? But not a lot. But what we're finding is that it's costing a heck of a lot of money to put on events for the city. I gave you a budget of what we have. We've been out there trying to get additional funds as well as the grant and aid. And we have come up with some dollars from different businesses in town. But we're still, just for the summer events, we're short $11,000. And so that's money that we've committed for all the entertainment and, all kinds of things that honestly were not kind of on my radar. So, for instance, the city doesn't have a PA system for when you put on events with different artists, right? So if they don't come with their own PA system, you got to fork out, I forget what it is, but for the whole summer we're paying thousands of dollars, like $3,000 or something, for somebody to come in and run the PA system for all of these different events. Then there's all the insurance. So we've never had to really do much in the way of insurance before, but now suddenly we have to do all this additional insurance for every single event and, depending on what you're doing. And so, that's a couple $1,000s, extra to us that we never would have had in our budget. And then, right down to having to get extension cords and duct tape and all of there's just so many little expenditures that really, really add up, right? And then marketing, so you got to try and get people out to the events and things like that too. So anyhow, my ask today is for you to contribute $11,000 to us seeing this through the summer to get these events done. And then sitting down with the chamber soon and trying to come up with a budget that's reasonable for you and us for the trade show for the future things that we put in that grant. So without that, we can't do it. So, that's basically it, right? So we did expect that the city would be contributing, right? You've been great so far. Your staff have been amazing, right? So every department that could help us has been helping us. But, there's just an awful lot of other things. It's an investment, right? And it's investment in the future. I mean, a lot of these things that we're investing in are going to be used over and over and over again, right? It's not like a one-off thing. So, yeah, that's my ask. There's a couple of other things that I didn't put in my report that are costing extra money, but the one thing is, like, if the city had a proper PA system, then we would only have to hire a person to run that PA system. If there was shade in Spirit Square, it'd make a huge difference to events. Otherwise, we're just going to be cobbling together different tents and things like that to try and, number one, the PA system has to have a cover on it. But, you know, people will need shade or from the rain or who knows, right? The elements and things like that. And the other thing is washrooms. So, you know, for our street markets, we've been fairly lucky that Community Futures has stepped up and they've opened their doors for our vendors to be able to use the washrooms. And the Music Hall of Fame as well has done that. But for Spirit Square, we've had to pay Kakuli Cafe to stay open for the night so that we can have people using their washrooms. So that's another added expense. So anyhow, we really need washrooms. And I know you guys, I know it's on your radar, but if we're going to be doing events and different things in town, we got to figure out the washroom situation. And I know it's an investment, but I think there's been some work done on it already. Anyhow, that's basically my ask. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Question that I have is, what is your time? Are we on a time stamp here, or what do we need here? Because to be 100% honest with you, with what you've brought forward, we're definitely going to have to talk to we're pretty much depleted with our money as we hand out, so we would need to talk to our CFO and see where we are with that. We'd have to noodle this whole thing. So
Yeah.
What is your timeline on this?
So the chamber has some funds there to cover it. So, you know, we're good here for covering off the expenses that we've got committed to right now. Okay. So, you know, if a month, you know, if you could give us an answer at the latest in a month for the 11,000, and sit down with us during that time as well to figure out what we can do about the other commitments for the trade show. Like I put in here, I was absolutely floored at some of the numbers that were coming in to just put on like a one-day festival. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe that, and that's without having to pay a person to actually organize it.
Okay. Council have any questions? Councilor Newman?
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation and coming with your report as well. I'm just curious in regards to the 11,000, has there been thought of scaling back events to save money here and there? I mean, I don't want to see this obviously go to the wayside. It's great for our community, but I'm just wondering what other options, and is that the fact that you're paying somebody to run the PA system, is there not a volunteer that could be able to do that within the organization?
Oh, no. Like, the thing is, the chamber is a board of 11 people, all business owners who don't have a lot of time or expertise in those areas. You've got to have a certain type of expertise. And some of them knew people, you know, so we did go that route at first, like, who do you know that could do this or that? And, you know, in the end, we got the best deal that we could possibly get. You know, I think it's Jeff Wyatt, I don't know. Yeah, who's going to do it. He's doing it for a really reasonable amount for us. And the thing is, you need a level of expertise. Okay. Like, I can't go and do that, you know. So, yeah. Maybe you could. I don't know, you know, like, but we don't have that expertise on our board.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
My question, again, thank you for bringing all this information forward as well, and I understand it's been a challenging to get businesses to come out period, just to become involved on the executive, et cetera. I understand.
Yeah.
But my question is, I know the chamber has been doing this for as long as I've been involved in our business since 2000.
Yeah.
And the chamber has moved and moved and moved and moved. And you're talking about expenses like duct tape and paper and things like that. Don't those move every time you move the office? Don't they stay with the chamber?
There was nothing. When the chamber
My question would
moved,
be, where did it go? And,
yeah, there was, I guess, I don't have a lot of the history, but when the chamber was asked to leave the city building, they put a desk and a filing cabinet or whatever into storage, and maybe miscellaneous items, I don't know. We didn't request to have that stuff back until we found a place to live, which was very recently. We got the pickleball club and were able to set up an office there. And so we were starting, like there was a few miscellaneous things in the desk, but not much, some paper clips and a couple of pens and, and it's missing a drawer. It's not a fancy desk. It's missing a drawer and it's a little wobbly and, it's got, dents and, it's not like we're going fancy here, right?
No, I understand.
yeah.
My thing is, I guess,
Yeah.
is that there should be more accountability from the chamber because they are all businessmen and have always all been business people in the community. These events that you're talking about putting on, they're very important for our community. I understand why you want to keep it going. I just think that there should be more accountability.
I think that, way back, like, I don't know what happened with the last board, quite frankly. Like, we just kind of came in. Ryan was a, temporary guy, and he was kind of keeping it going by himself with Fran. And don't get me wrong, there were some things that were over at the CF office. There was a couple of boxes there. There was a couple of boxes over at the Merritt property management place, and another store downtown had another couple of boxes. But you're talking really old files. Like that's the stuff they kept, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got files going back to 2000 or earlier, right? In boxes, but that's the kind of stuff that was kept.
Okay, then
Yeah.
Excuse me for interrupting, but
Yeah, no
moving
problem.
forward,
Yeah.
you have mentioned in your report too that you were looking to work in conjunction with the Economic Development Committee or department in the city.
Yeah.
And I would just like to know how you would expect that to work. I mean, you said maybe the city would be setting aside funds from our Economic Development Committee to work with the chamber.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because if it was the city that went for this FUR funding and you got a body to do it, it would have been the same for you. So it would have been, they would have said, you can only pay for a body to do these things that you want to do for economic development, and you guys would have had to come up with the money. So I am happy at this point. We haven't accepted the money, but I mean, we have hired a person to do the job to this thing, but if the city would like to take over and take that money and have this person come work for you, I'm very happy for you guys to take control. And we will just go back to what we do best, So it's up to you guys. It's something that you should maybe discuss. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. We would need to discuss before moving forward.
For sure. And that is, up to you guys and how you want to roll with this, right?
Just so you know, we'll be taking this as an information item and then we'll be talking about it. Because
absolutely, yeah.
Councilwoman. Councilor Hogan.
I just want to make it clear that I respect what the chamber does, so I want to start with that. Secondly, I was under the understanding that the extraordinary granting aid application that was approved back in May, it was going to be enough to carry forward this application, because now there is new information, so that's something that you have to adapt. So my concern is that right now, but if we approve additional funding, there was a limit within the granting aid application that is 7,500. If we go beyond that one, so I would feel like I would not be fair with the other organization that may be in similar situation. But I feel like the answer here is to think outside the box. I know how many challenges the chamber has had in the past. I know that there was no money to pay the storage, so when we have to go over the expenses, so you have to cut expenses, and that was one of the expenses. That's the reason why there is nothing right now, and they have to start all over from scratch. So I understand that part. So I feel like if the PA system it's an issue, or the insurance is an issue, so is there an option that I feel like the city, if the city purchased the PA, it could benefit not only the chamber, but any other organization in need of that system. So, and at some point we discussed the option of being those events under the city liability insurance. And again, if that is able to reduce your cost, that would be a way to move forward with these events. I feel like the city and the chamber is not going to be enough to make this possible. So I feel like we need the involvement of Community Futures, the Tourism Nicola Valley, other organizations to be able to make it happen, because I understand the importance of these events. Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that, and we are all of those organizations, we are all talking and supporting each other how we can, but every NPO has the same issue with money, right? And, as I pointed out in here, the more we go around and we talk to all of the different businesses and the NPOs, there are many businesses who contribute a lot to this community already. And they've got their certain NPOs that they fund in a lot of ways for their different events and things, and they've been doing it for years and years and years. So a lot of the potential money from businesses in town is tied up already with other NPOs and the things that they do. So, that's, we're a small town. Right? There's limited funds. You guys have limited funds. Everybody has limited funds, right? So, yeah.
Councilor Newman.
Just one last question too, just going over your expense breakdown and the information you provided. So of any of the events, like the night market that's coming up, or any of the further events, is there charges to people to attend, or is that a thought consideration to recoup some of your...
It's a thought, but I personally wouldn't do it, we want this to be a vibrant community with people who are actually turning out for things. And I think that you start charging for things, people will they won't show up. It won't be a vibrant city center. It will be a few people, right? It's different if you hold a dance, right? At the Civic Center, you bring in a big band, then of course you charge for something like that, right? But these things are different. They're meant to bring vibrancy to our downtown and to hopefully increase business. Some of the businesses that I've chatted to just on Quilchana, 5 to 10% their business goes up on a day that we hold an event. So it does make a difference to those businesses. And, same with vendors, vendor charges. We've really, the farmer's market charges a minimal amount. We've gone with the same minimal amount for tables, and we've made it free for nonprofits and free for young entrepreneurs, things like that, to try and encourage people to come out and be involved in their community. So that's our target, is to get people out, not to hinder people.
Sarah Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to speak to a couple points as well, I think Council likely has the background on the Chamber, but I'll speak to it a little bit because there was a period of time where I served on the Chamber board, because frankly in 2020 into 2021, there wasn't a Chamber board. It functionally ceased to exist. Marg stepped in thank you for doing what you did, because quite honestly, you resurrected the chamber, built that back up to a number of directors over time. So to speak a little bit to Councillor Egan's point is that there is some questions on transition, but getting it from the spot where chamber was in debt and not in a good spot, and getting it back to the spot where it's in the black and is healthy and is contributing to our community is a huge, it's a really big win for anybody that knows where it was. So first off, kudos for that, and just to give some of the context as to where we are now relative to where we were. So yeah, chamber needs help to do some things, but it's because they're actually doing some things, which is great for the city. The second thing that I wanted to flag is that this city event, NPO event, is something that's come up a lot of different times in a lot of different contexts, whether it's community airport days or whatever it is. And we as staff are working on something of a framework right now that will be coming forward to the policy review committee, because we're proposing to bring this and create a model for what events is the city going to be responsible for? What events is the NPO going to be responsible for? In those circumstances, what will the responsibilities of each party be? And what support will there be from the city? Because we want to create a little bit of a framework around this so that it's not so random and dependent on people coming forward each and every time. There will be a system that's built out around it. So that is something that I'm looking at Marilyn right now. We are actively working on, and we'll be coming forward to council once we've got a preliminary plan in place.
Thank you.
Great.
Councillor Charney.
Thank you for this report. I missed the beginning, so I'm not too sure if you talked about this, but I was looking at your sample budgets proposed for One Day Music Fest.
Oh, yes, that was done
Margaret?
by a contractor.
Margaret, can I get you to push your button again? It went off, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
So is this still a projected event?
Nope, we decided we could not do that. It
Okay.
is, we decided it was totally unaffordable, and our summer events are what we will do. The rodeo, come the end of September, will be done. And then it won't take much for us to do Midnight Madness or whatever in December. So the big next thing to come up that we put in that grant, that is one of the things on the city's list for economic development, was a trade show. And that can be next spring, it can be next summer, it can be next fall. We've got time on that.
Councillor Rubin.
I just want to mention that back in 2015, I had the opportunity to do a research with at least close to 20 municipalities to understand where the chambers from those municipalities were bringing some revenue. So I needed to understand what is going to be a sustainable model for the Chamber of Commerce, because the Chamber of Commerce has been always in red numbers, and how can we support the chamber and all the events and stuff that they represent. So I realized that in many of these municipalities, there were support from the city. Either in some of these municipalities, the Chamber of Commerce were receiving a percentage of the business license fee that was towards the chamber, and in any other model. So I do understand that. I think that we have to have a discussion with the Chamber of Commerce to come up with an action item so that we can move forward in having the chamber. Before we talk about a business improvement association, I think that we have to support the chamber.
Councillor Newman.
I just want to ask, just an organization that popped in my mind, just with all the events going on in town, have you reached out to Tourism Nicola Valley?
Yes, you bet. We had a meeting last week.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. That was just a thought. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I agree, something sustainable like you're talking about is exactly what we need to do. And we have gone over this many times in our strategic planning, and we cannot be sustainable with memberships alone. Just there isn't enough to do it.
Any other questions? Councillor Chart.
Thanks, Margaret, for all the detail. It's very nice to see what your plans are and everything and the details there. Of course, since we're limited with the grant and aid, we would have to do a special motion to do any kind of finance. So it will have to be something that we try and figure out where we could take that, since budget was already approved.
Yes.
I see the value, and I remember where, in the last term, where the chamber was, so I support and appreciate all of the work that you've done, and it's just figuring out where we would pull the money from, or what project maybe won't get done, well, a lot for everybody to discuss and see, but not anything that we can just think of quickly, probably, so.
No, exactly, I agree. Yeah,
But thank you very much.
yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Margaret. We'll take this as information. We'll start talking about it and start coming up with some sort of a plan. I mean, you'll find that this mayor and council want to have a lot of smaller things that bring people to our community every year, so we don't all of a sudden get hammered by a big item that no longer comes. So we are more focused on local entertainment. So yes, you've given us some food for thought, and we have to put our head together and noodle this thing. So I appreciate it, and always happy to see you. And stop asking us for money. Anyway, I'm kidding.
And just come and give you the good stuff. Don't have.
I'll still push a button on the way out. Thank you, Margaret.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. 6.3, Aspen Solar. I'm assuming this is going to be a Ryan McWilliams and David Marino, I hope I didn't kill your name, to present on the Aspen Solar project. Here they are. I will turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Yeah, sorry, it's just me, David Merritt. Ryan was not able to attend today, so you're going to be in with me. My understanding is there's 10 minutes for this. Is there a question period following, or should I try to target maybe like get through this and you say maybe 3 to 5 minutes and have time for questions? Okay, that should be more than enough time. Okay, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna share my screen and confirm we can see it. Then I'll get going here. Okay, so I'm gonna start off talking about the proponent, Recurrent Energy. So we are a leading global developer, owner, and operator of solar and energy storage projects. To date, Recurrent Energy has successfully developed 9 gigawatts of operating utility scale solar projects and 3 gigawatts of energy storage projects across 6 continents. We are currently developing several large-scale solar and battery storage projects in Canada with a total Canadian pipeline to date of 550 megawatts. And Recurrent Energy is a wholly owned subsidiary of Canadian Solar and functions as Canadian Solar's global development and power services business based in Guelph, Ontario. Our goal really is to deliver clean, reliable, and affordable power to everyone today and tomorrow. On the kind of Indigenous piece here, so we're going to start off with, for this project, we have agreement in principle with the Lower Nicola Indian Band, and kind of build on that. So we are committed to building positive, collaborative, and sustainable relationships with Indigenous communities who are affected by the project development efforts. In support of this commitment, we will be meaningfully engaging with Indigenous communities to better understand traditional land and resource uses and explore opportunities for mutual benefit with Indigenous communities throughout the development of the project. So just reading through this, I'm just going to talk kind of briefly here. Basically, we've been working with the First Nation communities for quite a while and learning their kind of interest in the project, whether that be in participating in the equity or coming on board for contracting, job opportunities, or in just general conversations to learn more about the solar and battery storage business that we're in. Ultimately, we want this to be, a project that is beneficial for the community, and yeah, we're very excited about it. A little more on the project. So the project developer is technically the Aspen BC Solar Project Limited Partnership. The source of the power is going to be solar. The size of the project is 100 megawatts for the solar component and 400 megawatt hours of battery energy storage. So what that means is basically it's a 1-to-1 ratio of the battery size to the solar facility. And essentially it's a 4-hour battery, which means that the battery can deliver 100 megawatts for 4 hours for system stability and resource adequacy. Basically, if the project, if there's a spike in power demand during peak hours, we can supply that from the battery if the sun's not shining. Based on our current studies to date, the amount of power this facility can supply is about 20,000 homes annually. The footprint of the project is 335 hectares. It is located just south of Merritt. I'll bring up a map here shortly just to get a better, sense of where this project is located. On the interconnection side, the project is currently in system impact studies with BC Hydro. Our earliest estimated construction start is Q4 of 2025, and we are targeting an operation date of Q4 2026. So kind of touched on this briefly, but the project benefits include the following. Indigenous communities will have the opportunity to join us as long-term 50-50 equity partners. During the construction phase, we estimate about 180 construction jobs will be required during peak construction season, as well as 2 full-time jobs during the operation and 13 part-time jobs. The project will supply dependable electricity to meet the electricity demand of industrial, commercial, and residential customers. Essentially, the idea is this is going onto the BC Hydro grid and will serve all the residents and industries of BC. The project will increase seasonal energy security and reliability to the people of the BC Southern Interior. And kind of elaborate on this a little bit. We're a very complementary resource to the current mix of generation in BC. Where, hydro is kind of a spring peaking coming off the spring freshet, but faces sometimes some challenges during the summer caused by droughts. That will have no impact on solar, and we'll be providing the majority of our power, a vast amount of our power during the summer season, spring, summer, fall season. The project will generate no emissions, have minimal traffic, and will have a lower noise profile than other industrial uses. Basically, only sound that comes out of these facilities is a slight hum from the inverters. There is no sounds similar to like other mechanical noises or the whooshing of a wind turbine. The project will result in the reduction of the region's production of carbon and other harmful emissions, and the significant associated health benefits that result. The project is expected to have a 40-year lifespan and will be decommissioned at the end of the operational life and the land returned to the original condition. I'll try to speed this up a little bit. The project design and components. So the PV module will be mounted above ground on steel single-axis tracking systems. Basically, what these are going to do is follow the sun from east to west throughout the course of the day. There will be a substation that has to step up the voltage from R34.5 kilovolts up to 138, which is the rating of the BC Hydro line. And the transmission right-of-way and transmission lines to connect the existing BC Hydro transmission corridor will take a path of approximately 5 kilometers west of the Aspen Solar Project area. Additional components of the site will include an office laydown and parking area, project fencing for safety and security, permanent solar met stations, off-site operation center, and then temporary construction laydown areas and temporary buildings and associated facilities. This is actually a photo from the site that is currently being proposed. It is located approximately 50 kilometers southeast of Merritt and south of Highway 97C within the boundaries of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District. The project is located within the traditional and unceded territory of the Naq'apamaq and Silk Nations people. The current proposed project area is within the boundaries of the BC Crown Land Solar Investigative License and License of Occupation, BC file number 3412969. And as mentioned before, the layout area is about 335 hectares, which represents 40% of this tenured area. In terms of the project schedule, subject to the interconnection studies and the required permitting, the construction would take place for approximately 1 year. Operations and maintenance would be 40 years, and then decommissioning would take approximately 1 year. Actually, sorry, before I do this, I'm just going to show a better picture of the actual project area. I think it might be beneficial to the group. So let me zoom in here a little bit. So the project area is just, as mentioned, south of 97C. I believe there's about a 4-kilometer distance between the project boundary and the highway. If you take a view either through Google Earth or alternatively just drive on the stretch of highway, what you'll see is there's a pretty solid wall of trees. So there'll be no visual, you won't see it from the highway, basically. This area was previously logged and disturbed, and we tried to place over panels within this previously disturbed area. I'm just gonna go back now here. Sorry, how am I doing on time? Yeah, okay. So the project is currently in the preliminary design stage, and continued environmental, cultural, and archaeological studies will be conducted throughout the EA process. There are potential environmental and socio-economic effects which could potentially occur from the construction, operations, and maintenance and decommissioning of the project. We will work to get specific management plans developed, which will provide guidelines and best management practices to implement during all phases of the project to help meet the requirements of necessary legislation, regulations, and policies and to reduce the potential effects of the project. This kind of just goes into a bit of details of the valued components, which include the air quality, aquatic resources, terrestrial resources, and noise. And on the human side, land and resource use, archaeological and heritage resources, community services, community infrastructure, visual and aesthetics, and human health and safety. And with that, I'll pause there, and I haven't answered any questions, but just a bit of an overview for the group.
Group, just want to make one thing. That picture you showed that looks like trailers, those are the actual batteries, correct?
Yeah. Let me get back there. Some of these photos here. So this here, very similar to an ACO trailer, which everyone's kind of familiar with, but much more industrialized and I guess advanced, is where the batteries are stored.
Question is just in regards to the disposal of the batteries and the solar panels at the end of the life expectancy of the project. What is the expectation of where those will go?
So the batteries, and the battery, and it's a great question. I appreciate it. The batteries last 20 years, so they're about half the life of the solar facility. On the solar piece, they can either be recycled or alternatively, it is common for them to go to secondary markets. And the reason for this is, although there is deterioration of the production of the solar cells as time goes on, over the 40 years, it is estimated that the deterioration amounts to roughly 12.5, 13%. So they still produce quite a bit of power, and it can be reused in other markets that are, well, non-utility grade. So they'll get, in essence, potentially a second life if they're not recycled. But that'll probably be determined later on, depending on what the market looks like for, secondary demand of solar panels, and or if it just makes more sense for us to recycle them.
I'm just wondering, does this just go to general landfill? Does this get buried, left out in the forest? What is the plan for the batteries?
So the batteries are recyclable, to my understanding.
Build?
I'm not sure if it's 100% recyclable, but I do know that the batteries are recycled, and there is an ability to recycle batteries.
So will they be removed from the site afterwards? Okay, thank you.
They're not going to be like dug up and buried there, no.
Perfect, that's the clarity I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, my question just has to do with, and perhaps you've mentioned it earlier, but I missed it. What's the area that this power grid will serve?
Well, so it would be connecting to the general BC Hydro grid. And once the power gets onto the BC Hydro grid, essentially it is consumed throughout the province of BC. So it becomes part of the electricity mix, if you will. So all the generation sources, whether that be hydro, solar, wind, geothermal, all go on to the BC Hydro grid and gets distributed based on power flows that, bring power to all the customers of BC Hydro. So the way in a regulated market it works is essentially the total cost of power gets divided by the load. So as the weighted average cost of power increases or decreases, that's your numerator. And then in essence, the denominator is the amount of load that BC Hydro can distribute the power to and charge the respective rates for industrial, commercial, and residential customers. Ultimately, we will not be responsible for those rates. That is BC Hydro.
Okay, so that really didn't answer my question, but I understand where you're coming from. The other thing is that after 40 years, other than the fact that perhaps technology will have advanced, why would you think of decommissioning it rather than just accommodating what the future brings?
Yeah, no, great question. So, and let me take a step back. I guess to answer your question directly, we don't set the rates BC. So at the end of the day, BC Hydro decides what they're going to charge you, and what they procure from potentially us, we don't have any say on what they're going to charge customers, right? So that's kind of outside of our scope. Yeah, and then on the decommissioning. So currently the project is contemplated, and the plan is to decommission. However, it's a great point, because typically what ends up happening in other markets and jurisdictions is that you request the permitting to be potentially extended, your studies with the utility to be redone, and you repower the facility. And the reason why this is so common with solar plants is because essentially what you do is you unscrew, unclip each one of these panels and put on the latest technology. Because the infrastructure is already in place, the most likely scenario is that BC is going to require more power in 40 years rather than less. So if there is, we'll call it increasing same power demand and an interest in the community and the indigenous nations, and the project can be re-permitted 40 years from now, and go through whatever studies and regulations we have to face at that point. That is an option, but currently the base case that we're using is a decommissioning to restore the land, if that is the desire of the community and the province, and we'll see what happens at that point. But that's a very good point, and typically people like to repower these facilities because they are just very well suited for that.
Councillor Charney?
Thank you for the report. It's well written. Other than the construction phase, I know you're outside of Merritt, but is there any economic spin-off for Merritt with this plant?
So once the solar facility is up and running, I'll be very candid, there's not a ton of work associated, right? It's about 2 full-time jobs, 13 part-time jobs. The part-time jobs are typically related to the vegetation management and the cleaning of the panels. They're very low maintenance facilities. So there's not a ton of operations jobs, if you will, that are created with these plants.
Petrosi?
Thanks, David, for the presentation. You mentioned 180 construction jobs for that year, 2025 to 2026. And is it kind of your own people, or you hire out, or would be locals actually be hired, or?
Yeah, so the way it works, we have a, so we're a project life cycle. So we do the initial project development all the way from siting of the project through to the EPC part of the business, but that part is actually third party led. So we would look for a company yet to be determined to actually carry out that work. But typically, wherever we develop the jobs, this makes sense. You don't fly them in, you don't bust them. You use the locals. So we would be looking to attract local talent for that construction, and would that would be through the EPC. Typically, that would be doing this work. It could be like a TCL, Borea, whoever it is, but the actual, we'll call it building of the facility is typically done to the extent possible, and that the extent the communities can support it with the local community.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions from council? Any questions from staff? No? Thank you, David. I appreciate your presentation, and I appreciated your open house. Thank you for coming to Merritt when you did, and I appreciate you being here tonight, so thank you very much.
Thank you. And if there's any questions, feel free to reach out, and happy to answer if anything comes to mind in the future.
Deck of slides to the city so we can send it out to our councils.
Yeah, just the open house slides that we presented. Is that the ones you guys are looking for?
That we could study, we would be more than appreciative to have, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
6.4, Environmental Assessment Office. Stasia Furby to present on how environmental assessments of our major projects are run and how the City of Merritt and local residents can be involved. And Stasia, you are up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was just trying to get off mute. I'm just piggybacking off of David, because I actually met many of you at the open house as well in Merritt, presenting on behalf of the Environmental Assessment Office. So I'm a project assessment director at the Environmental Assessment Office. And yes, I'm going to provide you an overview of the environmental assessment process, and just kind of explain how the City of Merritt and the public can be involved in the environmental assessment process of different projects. But since we're talking about Aspen Solar, I could discuss a little bit more about where Aspen is in its environmental assessment and how to be involved in that. So just to let you know that the Environmental Assessment Office is a neutral regulatory agency within the provincial government, and we work with and seek input from scientific professionals, Indigenous groups, proponents, the public, local government, and federal and provincial agencies to assess the effects of major projects. Our job is to conduct these reviews of these projects and administer the Environmental Assessment Act. Now, since Aspen Solar is a larger project, it's going to produce over 50 megawatts of power. It has to be assessed under the Environmental Assessment Act. And the EAO will be studying a broad range of potential effects resulting from the project. And these include potential effects on the environment, the economy, human health, Indigenous nations, as well as social and cultural effects. So our purpose is to conduct this assessment, administer the Environmental Assessment Act, and then written within our act, we have two important purposes, and that is to promote sustainability by protecting the environment and fostering a sound economy and the well-being of British Columbians and their communities, and to support reconciliation with Indigenous peoples in British Columbia. For the environmental assessment process is, this is a schematic of it. It's 6 phases long, and then at the bottom of this schematic, you can see there's a post-certificate phase, which would happen with a project. If a project is granted an environmental assessment certificate, there would be some things that happen, like compliance and enforcement, and potentially, maybe amendments to different projects, should the proponent be interested in doing that. For the Aspen Solar project, we're at the very top of this environmental assessment process in the early engagement phase, and that phase is 90 days long. We're at day 56 of that process, and we're really working on reviewing the initial project description, really getting an understanding of the project, understanding who wants to be involved in reviewing the project or participating in the environmental assessment. And all the information that we gather in this early stage will inform the EAO's summary of engagement, which is direction that we provide to the proponent to draft their detailed project description. And then once they draft their detailed project description, the EAO reviews that and decides whether the project is to proceed to an environmental assessment. So just to kind of recap there, we're in the pre-environmental assessment process for Aspen Solar. If the project does proceed, or if the project is deemed to be ready to proceed to the environmental assessment, then we will start our official process with process planning. I want to let you know that community members have 4 opportunities throughout the process to participate in the environmental assessment process. So currently we're at the tail end of our early engagement public comment period. It ends on this Friday. And I'll have some more information later in this presentation. If there are community members that have tuned into the meeting today, I can let you know how to comment on the project. And I should also let you know that we have been including the City of Merritt representatives on our technical advisors list. And so we're including you in our correspondence, and we will continue to do so to seek feedback on the different documents that are coming in through the process, such as the detailed project description, and then later on in the process when the application comes in and that type of thing, just to keep you apprised of the process and the opportunities to provide comments, because we know that local governments provide that really important local knowledge, the local community or local government perspective and specialized technical expertise that can help inform the EA and the application for a project. All right, just a few more slides here. So who participates in environmental assessments? Indigenous nations participate, the public, landowners, tenure holders, and other interested parties, provincial and federal agencies, local governments, and once we get into the environmental assessment process, we form some committees, such as the Technical Advisory Committee and the Community Advisory Committee, should there be enough community interest. The EAO is required to consult with Indigenous nations throughout the process and also to seek consensus at various steps throughout the process. And so in early engagement in this early stage of the EAA, we're working with potentially impacted Indigenous nations and understanding how they wish to be participating in the process. And we tailor that work with Indigenous nations depending on their interests, their priorities, their governance. So each nation may participate in a different way in the process, depending on their own interests. And as I mentioned, we have 4 opportunities for the public to comment, because we know that the public views are critical to understanding concerns about projects that are proposed in their backyards. And so we have these 4 public comment periods, as well as open houses to share and collect information. We have a website that's that posts publicly available information about the project and of course about the process. And for Aspen Solar itself, you can go to projects.eao.gov.bc.ca and search for Aspen Solar and Energy Storage, and you can access those documents. And as well, there'll be an option to submit public comments if you have comments or concerns regarding the project that you can provide during this public comment period until Friday. If there's enough community interest, then we may also establish a community advisory committee, which would support a more enhanced method of engagement with the public. And that whether a community advisory committee would be established is determined in process planning in the first official step of the EA process. For the City of Merritt, as I mentioned, we'll be including you in our technical advisors list and continuing to keep you in the loop. The Technical Advisory Committee advises the EAO and participating Indigenous nations on technical matters related to the assessment and review the proponent's application and other documents that come in through the process. And on the Technical Advisory Committee, we look for the expertise of provincial, local, and federal governments and the participating Indigenous nations. And in this early engagement phase, we're really working to establish who will be a technical advisor. And the Technical Advisory Committee is officially formed during process planning. And at that time, we would establish the terms of reference, the Technical Advisory Committee guidelines and roles and responsibilities for reviewing the project and related documents. So just to sort of summarize a little bit what I've said here, where about the Aspen Solar project specifically, we're in the early engagement phase, which is a 90-day legislated timeline. We're on day 56. And the purpose of this phase is to build an understanding about the project, identify interests and concerns raised by participants, and gather the information we need to inform the next phases of the assessment. And we're doing that by engaging with the participants early and developing relationships, understanding who wants to be involved or who should be involved. We're working on identifying the interests of Indigenous peoples. This early work helps us identify issues early so that we can start charting a path forward towards resolution. And all the information that we gather will inform the EAO's summary of engagement, which helps the proponent draft their detailed project description to lead into that. Is the project ready to enter the environmental assessment process called the readiness decision? I'm going to skip forward a couple slides here. So all the work we do in early engagement informs that detailed project description. And then once the EAO and Indigenous nations review, and technical advisors as well, review that detailed project description, we will decide whether the project is ready to proceed to environmental assessment or if we need more time for engagement. So that concludes the presentation on the EA process. I don't know if anyone has any questions or any comments. I'd be happy to answer those about the process.
I was enjoying meeting you at the open house. You answered all my questions quite well. And again, I will open up any questions to council because I've already got my questions. Thank you for the presentation. Very concise, very informative. Thank you. Anyone from council have any questions? This is a good sign, Stash. It means you got it all in the first hit. Oh, now hold on. Councilor Richard?
I don't really have a question, but rather just a comment. And I just want to say thank you for inviting us where we got to see the big posters at the open house. I know that Councilor Turney and the mayor and myself got to attend. So I feel like now it's just hearing it again and really whatever I maybe didn't hear last time, you filled us in. So thank you for that. It's a lot of information for yourself to present. So thank you.
I appreciate that very much, and we'll continue, as I say, to keep the City of Merritt representatives and mayor and council apprised of the next steps of the EA and the next times to provide comments, any upcoming open houses and public comment periods as well, just to keep everybody in the loop with what's going on with the project.
Thank you, Stasia. And good luck with the project. Good luck day 57 and on. So good luck with that and keep us posted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, 8.1, fees and charges amendment bylaw number 2355, 2023. Bylaw number 2355, 2023 was read 3 times on June 13th, 2023, and is presented now for adoption. So the recommendation in front of us is that fees and charges bylaw number 2335, 2023 be adopted. Councillor Olin, Councillor Egan, any comments or questions that we missed the first 3 times? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. New business, 9.1. Yep, if you would announce your departure, please.
I think I will leave
You'll have to turn your mic on, Councillor.
I will step out during the discussion on 9.1, the new business, as I do have a conflict of interest.
Thank you. Mom, could I get you to, or Bob, get the, oh, she's got the door. Thank you.
You don't technically need to close the door.
Okay, good. Remedial action requirement, unsightly property at 1625 Coldwater Avenue, to be introduced by Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. So to start out, we'll acknowledge that each of these hearings will be treated independently, and I want to start off with a bit of a preamble on what this is and what the role of council is, what the role of staff is, and what the role of the properties owner in this property owners are in this process, so that we're all clear on that and we know what's in and out of bounds from the outset. So first off, this is a remedial action requirement hearing, and so this is what is called a quasi-judicial process, which means that unlike other times where staff is the person where, generally speaking, we want you to listen to what we have to say, here you are independently considering what is being presented to you, and what we are saying, you are considering that separately and independently, much the same as you would consider the information from the property owners, and you will ultimately take what the community charter says and the requirements are, as well as what you see and understand the situation to be on the ground, and determine whether that does or does not meet the requirements for making a declared nuisance order in this particular circumstance. And so we'll take each one of these situations individually. The other thing that I want to be clear on is that this is something that is being brought forward under the authority set out in the community charter under section 72 and 74 of the community charter. So even though there has been historical discussions and action that's been taken under the good neighbor bylaw, and previous to that the nuisance bylaw, as we're proceeding today, or proposing to proceed today, we are looking at this under council's authority to make a declared nuisance under section 74 of the community charter. So with that, I'll start off by explaining what section 72 and section 74 of the community charter do, and then we'll jump into the first item at 1625 Coldwater Avenue. So to start, the standard that council is applying in this particular matter. So as you can see in Division 12 or Section 72, the community charter sets out an authority that council may impose remedial action requirements in certain situations. And so the 3 situations that you can make those requirements are the situations set out in section 73, 74, and 75, being hazardous conditions, declared nuisances, or harm to drainage or dikes. Then there are a number of things that you can do if you do in fact make a declared nuisance order. So in this particular instance, staff is bringing this forward under the potential for council to make a declared nuisance remedial action requirement. So in section 74, it says that a council may declare that any of the following is a nuisance and may impose a remedial action requirement in relation to the declared nuisance: a building or other structure, an erection of any kind or similar matter or thing, a natural or artificial opening in the ground or similar matter or thing, a drain, ditch, watercourse, pond, surface water, or similar matter or thing. A matter or thing, there's a lot of matter or things in here, that is in or about any matter or thing referred to in paragraphs A through C. And then the last one that is captured by declared nuisances is that it says that subsection 1 also applies in relation to a thing that council considers is so dilapidated or unclean as to be offensive to the community. And so in making this, you have to satisfy yourselves that you do in fact have the authority to exercise this power, that it falls into one of those classes, and also that the thing in question constitutes a nuisance in its legal sense. And so that's one thing that I want to take a little bit of time on, just to make sure that council is on the same page with that. So for nuisance, it's normally defined as something harmful or offensive to the public or a member of the public for which there is a legal remedy, or again, as you can look in that, something that is so dilapidated or unclean as to be offensive to the community. So that's the standard that you are applying when you are considering whether you will or will not make a declared nuisance remedial action requirement in this situation. Now, are there any questions about the framework before we discuss specifics? So the order as it generally works is there will be representations made to you from staff. There will then be representations made to you by the owner of the property or owners of property, at which point council will have an opportunity to ask questions. After you have satisfied yourself that you've asked the questions that you needed to answer, at that point it would just be deliberations amongst council before making your decision whether to or not to make the remedial action requirement. With that, Your Worship, I would, having gone over the overview, if you're comfortable, I'll proceed with the introduction to
Please
first property.
Please continue.
Okay, so first we'll start with 1625 Coldwater. And so there's a recommendation in here, and I am not going to go through the entirety of the recommendation, but what council does need to know is that there is a degree of specificity that is required in making a remedial action requirement. And so you will note that there is a high degree of specificity in terms of the order as to what would be subject to the remedial action requirement and what would not be. And so I would invite council to ask any questions that you may have as to what would be in or out in that process. I also want to highlight for council that in making any remedial action requirements, we had initially proposed a number of days for both of these that would be suitable. Staff, we want to be amenable to understanding that there are timelines that may be put forward by property owners as well. And so should council see fit to change the time that would be given prior to exercising any of the city's authority under any remedial action order, staff is more than amenable to making changes to the proposed timelines to better accord with what would suit the property owners. So in that, we've made recommendations, and we'll put that forward for council's question. What we do want to highlight is that in each instance, there has been a degree of effort put forward to work with the property owners towards cleaning the property. Now, for this particular property, 1625 Coldwater Avenue, that has been less. The primary interaction for this property was dating back to August 26th, 2021. So fairly shortly prior to the flood. And there were efforts that were made to clean the property at that time. Of course, being in around the flood inundation zone. Afterwards, there has not been any major efforts from city staff to undertake further cleanup of that property or to require the same of the owner. That being said, as we view this particular property, we note that there are quite a number of different things on the property, whether we're talking vehicles, wood, furniture, mattresses, pallets, other things that can be seen in the pictures that are included with the report, that in the opinion of staff meet the requirement of constituting a nuisance in the legal term, and it would be staff's recommendation that we make the remedial action requirement order as proposed in this. What we do note is that there was a letter that we received from Susan Roline in relation to this particular property that referenced a cleanup plan that was arranged between the city and the owners of the property back on July 25th, 2022. We fully acknowledge that that meeting did take place. In my recollection, the primary thrust of the discussion was actually about 1525 Main Street during that meeting, and that's where the focus of the discussion was, and the Coldwater property was one that we had discussed we would tackle afterwards, but I invite you to take the representations from the owners of the property on that matter. And so I will speak to the subject of that discussion as well as the letter that we sent following that meeting as part of the next hearing, as I believe that's where it was where arrangements were made. So with the steps that have been taken by the city, we are proposing, as you can see in some of the pictures, that there would still be some items that would be able to be left behind, those items that we understand have some degree of higher value or function or whatever the case may be. So it's not like everything off the property has to go, and we've tried to be understanding and flexible with how we would approach that. And noting that there is a plan in place from that letter that, presuming we are talking about 1625 Coldwater Avenue, that this property could be cleaned by the 24th. The city would be amenable to amending our timeline, which we had proposed at 45 days, to the required 58 days to go past the August 24th deadline, should that be something that council would choose to do as part of your consideration in making a remedial action order on this file. And so with that, we will be available for questions afterwards, but if you have any, that is the thrust of our presentation on this particular file.
Thank you, CEO Smith. So at this point, Susan, would you like to come forward, please? Oh, turn on it. Council is always happy to see a returning mayor, so welcome to council.
Yeah, funny way to be here, right? So good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Susan Roline. I live at 2499 Chapman Street. I am here this evening to speak to agenda item 9.1 with regards to a property that I co-own. I would like to explain the plan that we have worked on since last summer to address the condition at 1625 Coldwater Avenue. We have family members that have committed their vacation time and taken leave time in order to assist in the cleanup. They will be here for a total of 5 weeks in July and August. When these plans were originally made, it was that the Coldwater property be cleaned up as well as another property owned by a family member. Unfortunately, there are now 3 properties that will need to be cleaned up, with one, a rented one, being priority due to its landlord having other tenants ready to move in. We're requesting that an extension be made from the 45 days, which would be approximately August 14th, to 60 days, which would be approximately August 30th. We may not require this extension, but it would provide us with a cushion. There will be progress made on this property in each of the 5 weeks, and we already made some progress this past weekend because some of the family members came this weekend, so we were able to get some things moved. So we hope to have it all cleaned up before September. So thank you for your consideration to this extension, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. Let's get you push that red button. Council, any questions? Or Sierra Smith? You're good? Council? So this before us, so the idea is to make it a remedial action, but I see no problem with the extension of the 60 days. Does anyone have a problem with that? I have no problem with that, and I appreciate the work the family members are going to get involved with, and the city would love to see it all come into order. Susan, we would. If there is no, do I make a recommendation on that, or? Sierra Smith?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is one area where I would recommend going through, as much as you're not going to want to hear it, the entirety of the recommendation, making any amendments you see fit for changing the timelines.
Okay, so you want me to read the entire recommendation?
I would recommend that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Newman?
No, I'll wait. I was going to make the motion, but if you are going to proceed, feel free to read it yourself.
So the recommendation before us, whereas Section 74 of the Community Charter, SBC 2003 C26, the Community Charter, authorizes council for the City of Merritt, this city, to impose a remedial action requirement on the owner of the occupied land in relation to a declaration nuisance. Whereas Samuel Brian Rolene, Susan Marie Rolene, and Derry Ellen Wooden, the owners, are registered owners of the following property: PID 02544954, Lot 10, Block 1, District Lot 125, Kamloops Division, Yale, District Plan 1219, the property. And whereas council for the City of Merritt have received and reviewed the staff report dated May 19th, 2023 in relation to the property, the report, now therefore the council of the City of Merritt resolves as the following. 1, that based on this information contained in the report and pursuant to Section 74 of the Community Charter, the following items and or materials which are kept outside of the property, including any area which is under roof but is part open to the outside, are hereby declared nuisance. Furniture and mattresses, scrap metal including but not limited to bed frames, pipes, bicycles, rolls of wire, and meshing. Wood shipping pallets, crates and boxes both filled and empty, accumulated barbecues, discarded and broken lawn furniture, appliances including but not limited to stoves, fridges, washing machines, and dryers, piles of building materials including but not limited to lumber, doors, and piping, garbage, and vehicles as identified and numbered number 1 to number 8 in Schedule C, attached to the report, the nuisance materials. 2, that pursuant to Section 72 of the Community Charter, the owners are hereby required to remove the nuisance materials from the property, the remedial action requirement, that owners must comply the remedial action requirements within 45 days after notice of this resolution is given.
So that's, I think, we wanted to amend it to 60 days.
I was just going to read the whole thing through, and then I'll make the amendment now. Okay, I'll make the amendment now. That the owners must comply the remedial action requirement within 60 days after the notice of this resolution is given to the owners. Number 4, that if the remedial action requirement is not complied within the deadline set in paragraph 3 of this resolution, the city and its agents, contractors, employees may, pursuant to Section 17 of the Community Charter, undertake any or all of the actions necessary to fulfill the remedial action requirement at the expense of the owners, and such actions may include disposing of the nuisance materials in landfill, and 5, that the city may recover from the owners all of the city's costs that the City of Merritt incurred by fulfilling the remedial action requirement as a debt or property taxes on properties pursuant to Sections 258, 259 of the Community Charter. Do I have a mover on that? Councilor Newman, Councilor Petrosi. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to 9.2. Remedial action requirement, unsightly property, 1525 Main Street, to be introduced by CEO Smith. Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Thank you very much. The process will be the same, and so I won't belabor the specific details. I would invite council to again review the particulars in the pictures to determine what we are proposing to include in this order, and to make your assessment as to whether you do in fact feel that this meets the threshold of being a nuisance or not. I will state that the efforts to implement systems to clean this property up have been a little bit higher, both by Mr. Wooden and by the city, and that there have been many discussions dating back a period of in excess of 15 years for this particular property, and that there's been various attempts with that, and at times it has been cleaned to a degree, but it does tend to regress to a spot where it's quite cluttered in its present state. I would note that this is the file that, to the best of our recollection, the subject of that July 25th discussion took place, where we did set out a plan for cleaning and sent a letter to that effect, where if we started to see progress on the property, we wouldn't take any more immediate measures. When we attended to make that first inspection in September of 2022, our bylaw officer was not permitted onto the property to complete that inspection at that time. And so there has not been persistent enforcement efforts until bringing this forward, seeing as the agreement that we had reached in the city's opinion was not met. That being said, once again, we are wanting to see this done, but we're more than flexible in wanting to take the submission of the landowners as to what is a reasonable amount of time to accomplish that objective. And so should there be any representation that 90 days would be insufficient for this particular property, acknowledging that there are two properties here and maybe the focus might be on one than the other, then we would be supportive of whatever it is that council would decide in that particular matter. We'd be available for any particular questions or enforcement efforts that have been taken to date. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whidden, would you like to proceed? I'll get you to push the red button once you're up there, please.
Is that,
You're good.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah. You can pull that mic up if you wish. There we go.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Derry Wooden. I currently reside at 1525 Main Street in my RV trailer there. I'm here this evening to speak to the agenda item 9.2 with regards to the property that I own at 1525 Main Street. I would like to explain that the plan that I've worked on for quite some time now is to address the state of 1525 Main Street. I have recently purchased a rural property out of town, and I'm planning to move out there basically. So I get possession of that property next week. So at that time, I'm going to move all the vehicles that I'm driving, on a regular basis, and the RV trailer that I'm living in, and most of the stuff out of the front yard, the tractor and all that, because that's why I bought the tractors, for the real property. And so the bulk of the stuff in the backyard is going to take me more time than 90 days. That I'm probably not going to be able to get it. Hopefully I could get it done by when snow hits, at the end of October or something. But the new property that I'm going to is off-grid. There's no well, there's no hydro, so I'm going to be trying to set up off-grid living there. So the property is also not fenced properly, so I'm going to have to try to figure out some fencing to contain my dogs out there so they don't chase some deer or something out there. Family has been helping me with vacating industrial property that I've been leasing for the past 7 years on Priest Avenue. I'm working continuously to purge vehicles, scrap metal, all kinds of other stuff. Today I took a load of appliances out of the Coldwater Avenue property, 22 washers and dryers and stoves. So that's a truck and trailer load. I took those to the scrap metal in Kamloops, and I got $260 for that. None of what I'm doing is profitable. I don't know why I'm doing it. I have a bad habit of collecting. It's been with me my whole life. Main Street property goes back to when I was a kid. See, I'm 50 now. 35 years ago, the yard was a mess also. This isn't anything new. It's just, the problem is me, and I really shouldn't live in town. Stuff just comes to me. People dump stuff on me. I'm not home. A TV shows up in my front yard. You know, I'm not at the around the Priest Avenue, washers and dryers pile up there. And then I'm overwhelmed with trying to deal with it all. I don't, you know, after the flood, I was in a bad habit of picking up all these appliances, figuring, I could fix them easy. You know, a lot of them didn't get flooded much. And then, you know, I sold some, I fixed some and sold some, but then the pile sits there, you know, and then it becomes a nuisance. I'm trying to change, but it's a battle. And then the more anxiety I have, it feels like the more I want to put stuff around me. So it's, you know, I don't want to live in town anymore because it's just, stuff is around all the time and everybody's giving something away, or there's yard sales to go to every weekend, and oh, there's a deal, you know, and it's easy enough to just overbuy. So, yeah, that's my plan with it, is to, like I say, I got this property and I take possession next Wednesday. So the first agenda is to get some fencing set up there so I can contain the dogs, and then to work on living, getting, moving that RV trailer out there, and then come to town every day to work on more stuff to purge, either hit the dump with it or haul it in for scrap, or, you know, the stuff that I want to keep, you know, like I say, the tractor and all the tools and stuff. It's not garbage, you know. I have chainsaws laying around the yard and stuff that really should be in the shed or something, but because I have dogs, I don't have a theft problem now that I have dogs, but I will if I don't have the dogs there. So I'm going to have to move that stuff somewhere really quick. And I don't have a shed or anything on the new property, so I don't even know what I'm going to do with that. You know? So I got a lot of work ahead of me. I've been, you know, working hard at that Priest Avenue property. I got rid of about 30 vehicles in the past 6 months. You know, either they went to scrap in Kamloops or they got sold locally or something. You know, I sold a van to a guy 3 weeks ago. He paid me for it. He still hasn't picked it up. I'm phoning him. Hey, when you come to pick up your van? So none of it's easy. It's the day starts at 5 in the morning, you know, of answering messages on Facebook of stuff you're selling or trying to purge, you know. And things are getting moved around, and, well, I kind of need this later, so some stuff got put at the Coldwater property because I didn't have anywhere to put it in the meantime while I was working on this property deal. So it's like, okay, I got to get stuff out of Priest Avenue, and some things, well, I can use that at the new property. So, yeah, so that's where I'm at with it.
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah.
So, just so you know, I am a collector and have been since I was a child as well, and I've amassed a ton of stuff as well, so I know how you feel about your stuff.
Yeah.
We have for 90 days. Would 120 days be better for you?
When would that bring me to?
Basically the end of October, I would believe.
Yeah, you know, I'm pretty confident I can get the front yard all done by then, and probably the trucks out of the backyard. But there's a lot of stuff around the sheds and everything that I'm not really going to be able to get to until I can get a truck right there. Otherwise, I'm going to be walking all day back and forth trying to pack stuff out to the front yard. So I have to start at the front of the yard and work my way in, you know, like I've been doing at the Priest Avenue place.
I think that you will find that if you're willing to work with us, we'll be willing to work with you.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you're willing to clean it up and you realize it's time to clean it up, that's a huge step.
Yeah.
And we don't want to drop any hammers on anybody if we have to, but it's a point where we've gotten where we have to do something.
Yeah.
And so we'll be more than happy to work through as long as we see progress happening, and you know, whatever where we can help, we can help.
Yeah.
But I have some questions here, Councillor Newman.
I have a question of staff in regards to the extension of the days. If we are to stick with the 60 days,
It's 90.
or sorry, 90 in this case, what is the process for an extension once we get to that 90 days? Do we have to go through the whole process again, or is it like, I'm just trying to, is it better to go with this 90 days now, or is it better to grant 120 days and then?
We just went through one and we extended it to, we extended that one without a gigantic problem, didn't we not?
So I think the question might be slightly different than what we did just with the last one. It's if you make a remedial action requirement order, if you want to amend the date on that particular order. I don't actually have a definitive answer. I'm going to look to Linda if you do. I will give you my best estimate as to what I think happens if she doesn't have a firm answer.
Ms. Brick?
What I would suggest is this is a council resolution. We would need to bring it back to council to amend a council resolution. That's not something that staff can unilaterally do.
Okay. So we would have to stay with the 90 as it sits.
You could change to whatever you want right now.
My question was more along the lines, if we stick with the 90 days that has been presented in the report now, make the recommendation, I wanted to know if in 90 days, if Mr. Wooden was in a situation where he wasn't at that point yet, that we could possibly come back and amend it to add another 60 days on it, or?
I see where you are.
My gut tells me, because there's a lot more particular steps that need to be followed with something like this to have an enforceable remedial action requirement. I think that we might be required to have another remedial action
after 90
quasi-judicial hearing in order to do that after 90 days. So I would definitely recommend to get the date that you think is appropriate now, and then if we do need to cross that bridge, we can bring you more information at that time.
So just further to that is, my concern is winter. My concern is not all of a sudden we get a snowfall in October and we are immobilized again for 6 months or 7 months. And that would be my only concern right at this point. Thank you for coming forward. It's great to see you here and working with council. And I appreciate the struggles that are going on. It's overwhelming for a lot of people. But as I said, my concern sits with winter and looking at this for another season. So and the only thing that I would like to bring up is your mention of the fence and dogs. I myself have been stuck in the dog park by your dogs, being loose in the fence yard that they have now. So going forward, I just need to caution you that I'm a pet owner, I love pets, but not everybody in the community loves dogs or cats or whatever animals we have, to just try very hard to keep those.
Yeah, I have been, but
they're escape artists.
Yeah, they figure out a way out. And as soon as I'm outside the fence, that's where they want to be too.
Yeah.
You know? So and that's why I'm moving out of town too, is because it's containing them has been a real, at every property that I've been at, because when the flood hit, I was over at the Coldwater Avenue place, and containing them there was the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And I just caution with, congratulations to I'm buying a new property, but I also caution you that it doesn't happen again somehow, you know, that it's, if we don't move we don't want you to end up in the same situation on a different piece of property or ways to help.
Well, while you're going through stuff, then the purging goes on, but you know, that's a lot of work too, you know. But the good thing about the property out of town is that you can burn. So the wood piles aren't going to be what they are now, you know. So it's just, and I'm limited by space out there too, you know. So it's
Councilor Regan?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Derry, and thank you for being here as well. After you move, what are your intentions with that property?
Well, I'd like to sell it because I really can't afford to probably keep owning this many properties I got. My tax bill is getting pretty high. And then, I don't know, the house needs a lot of work. So does Coldwater Avenue. Coldwater got hit more by the flood. Then the other property I own over on Clapperton Avenue also got hit by the flood. That house is inhabitable either.
Is this house is habitable? Or?
No.
No? I'm just thinking about, there's propane tanks and other oil cans and things like that, a lot of construction materials that are on there.
Yeah.
Would it have to be treated, for spills and things like that before someone else could live there?
Yeah, no, it's not like I've been dumping oil or anything like that, I'm a recycler, so I'm not, I don't like just, let's start dumping used oil in my yard.
Well, accidents, I'm just saying accidents happen.
Yeah. No, I don't think it would need an environmental assessment or anything.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Yeah.
Councilor Rogan. Thank you. So it's clear that the issue has been there for quite some time. So we appreciate the attitude to fix this issue.
Yeah.
So my only concern here is that if we reach the 90 days and there is no progress, as in past situations, so what's going to happen? So if we are flexible, we are here to work with you. So if there is a progress on that in the cleanup, so I wouldn't have an issue extending that to 120 days.
Councilor Newman?
Just clarity of Councilor Ogun. So you're suggesting that we keep it at the 90 days and then revisit it to allow up to 120 days if there has been progress made at 90?
That was my first thought, if there is a way that we can make it work. So we would give the certain time for the owner to work out on that cleanup. And as long as he shows the progress, so we can just consider the extension.
CEO Smith?
So I'm trying to figure out a way that we can frame this logistically to, should that be the direction council wants to go. I think that the way to do this would be to determine whatever the last council meeting is before that September 25th 90-day mark, and bring forward a review at that point where council would make a determination as to whether you would direct staff to exercise the remedial action requirement at the conclusion of the 90-day period, or to offer an extension as you, oh boy. September 26th is the meeting, which is like knocking on that 90-day mark. So I would maybe suggest that a time in excess of 90 days, let's say it was an even 100, so that we could bring forward a report on the 26th and still have an opportunity to exercise.
Okay.
I'm going to look to staff briefly if that is something, because in the day I'm not going to be here for it if that's functionally possible. Okay. Staff would be supportive of that approach if that would be suitable to council.
Councilor Richard?
Given that we already just had the other property discussed and there's the 60 days, I would be amenable to putting the 120 in now. It's longer than the 90. We could encounter snow October 1st, or we could not see it till December the 20th. I think there's a lot of work in just being realistic. I think that if he's working with us and he's here with the presentation and they're working with everything, we should give them the 120. It's October. Typically October's still warm, but that's my thought.
Thank you. Councilor Newman?
I still have a lot of uneasiness with the 120 days right now. I would like to see the progress before going that route, only based on the history that's already been provided to us. I am more than willing at that time to extend or go through this process again, if that is the case. I'm worried now that since the beginning of this conversation, we've heard about now a rental property that is, and then a Clapperton Avenue address, and now a new property that needs fencing and a lot of other work as well. So I know it's an overwhelming process, and my heart goes out to the whole process and the people involved in it. But unfortunately, it has gotten to a point where it has become a hazard and a nuisance for our community. There are, and I have to consider that first and foremost. I just want to see this work proceed, and if there's lots of work being done and we are accountable for our actions, that I think at that point in time we can gladly sit down again and extend it, or as staff comes back, possibly go for a second remedial action. But I'd like to see the action before granting 120 days.
Councillor Richard.
Well, I don't agree. And I think that given the number of properties that he has, I think that having all that done, both properties within the 90 days isn't realistic. And I think that's why we need to do the 120. I've known Derry and Susan for a long time. I understand it's a problem, and I agree with that statement. But at the same time, that's a lot of work that he has to do, and you have to think of what the capacity is to get rid of that. And I think if we're trying to get to one milestone of getting the other Priest location and the other property on Coldwater done, I think 120 is more realistic, because we're just going to end up right after UBCM trying to do another remedial action piece, and I think that time will be an issue for us and for them. And that's why I think the 120. It's not because I don't think the property has to get cleaned. I understand all the issues that have been addressed, but I think the realistic thing is give them the 120 for the second property.
Councillor Petrosi.
I agree with Councillor Etchart, 120 days.
Thank you. CEO Smith, where does that again put us at 120 rather than 100?
120 is October 25th.
Okay. And what was the issue with?
So the there is no,
okay.
Again, other than it's 30 days later, but I think that from an administrative perspective, coming to council 20 days beforehand to bring an updated report, it's going to add some additional burden probably for both parties. And so if council has an appetite to consider 120 off the bat, knowing that the intent would be, if it's not clean by that time, that we would make arrangements for exercising the order. Okay. If council wanted to have a degree of pause and question on that, you could build that into any order with any timeline that you want. Okay. But if you say 120, our intent would be to go and clean it up if it's not done after that 120.
Councillor.
So then we would have an opportunity, I'm just wondering, so the first property that has the 60 days on it, if that is in good order and everything is good, concurrently we're running a 120. Is there a way to see at that 60 days if there's been any work done on the second property? Or do we just, is it because we've granted that?
This is two separate items.
No, I understand that, but like I'm just, a time frame is what I'm referring to.
You know what, I'm going to read the recommendation with the change to 120, and council can vote as they please to vote on it. And if it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So the recommendation is, whereas Section 74 of the Community Charter, SPC 2003, C26, the Community Charter authorized council for the City of Merritt, the city, to impose a remedial action requirement on the owner or occupier of land in relation to the declared nuisance. And whereas Derry Wooden, the owner, is the registered owner of the following property: PID 011712325, Lot F, District Lot 125, Kamloops Division, Yale District Plan 1220, the property. And whereas the council for the city have received and reviewed the staff report dated May 19th, 2023 in relation to the property or the report, now therefore the council of the city resolves the following. 1, that based on information contained in the report and pursuant to Section 74 of the Community Charter, the following items and or materials on the property which are all kept outside on the property are hereby declared a nuisance. Scrap metal, including but not limited to lawn furniture, bed frames, pipes, bicycles, ladders, and car parts. Appliances, including but not limited to fridges, freezers, stoves, washing machines, vehicles numbered 1 to number 7, as identified in Schedule C attached to the report: trailers, piles of wood, lumber, wood pallets, rubbish including but not limited to buckets, bins, children's swimming pools, discarded and broken lawn furniture, piles of construction materials including but not limited to kitchen sink, screen doors, window screens, and toilets, assorted lawnmowers, broken, damaged, and discarded tools and machinery, boxes and crates, furniture, and mattresses and tires of nuisance materials. That pursuant to Section 72 of the Community Charter, the owner is hereby required to remove the nuisance materials from the property. The remedial action requirement. Okay? So that the owner must comply with the remedial action requirement within 120 days after the notice of the resolution is given to the owner. 4, that if the remedial action requirement is not completed within the deadline set out in paragraph 3 of this resolution, the city and its agents, contractors, or employees may pursuant to Section 17 of the Community Charter, undertake any or all of the actions necessary to fulfill the remedial action requirement at the expense of the owner, and such actions may include disposing of the nuisance materials in landfill. And that, number 5, the city may recover from the owner all of the city's costs the city incurred by fulfilling the remedial action requirement as a debt or property tax on the property pursuant to Sections 258, 259 of the Community Charter. Do I have a mover? Councilor Petrosi, Councilor Etchart. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? It carries. Thank you, Derry.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you very much for presenting. Thank you, Susan. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you. Send Wendy back in. I'm hoping. she's probably out riding her bike. Right? Hey! No kidding. 9.3, appointment of financial officer Kevin McInerney. I'm sorry. I tried to do this. I even said I'm going to kill your name, so I did. To be introduced by Mr. Smith. CEO Smith, please. Oh, again.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to invite Kevin to pronounce his last name for everyone so that we can all get this once and for all. So hopefully. Thanks, Kevin. Nat Kanimi.
I'm out.
Can you repeat that?
Nat Kanimi.
How about just Nat?
So do you get the most awkward welcome to the city of Merritt or what? The short of this report is that we are pleased, so grateful to have Kevin Nakanimi here with us and for his willingness to take on the Director of Finance role. Now, in the city of Merritt, under our Delegation of Authority bylaw, the Director of Finance is automatically made the financial officer pursuant to Section 149 of the Community Charter. There is one distinction to that, is that you must approve the CAO's hiring of Kevin as the Director of Finance. And so in this particular instance, I know that I got tacit informal approval, but I would love for you to put it in the books so that it's forever written. What was that?
We're going to do the recommendation.
Yeah, there's a recommendation.
Yeah. I'll read it out.
Council approved the CAO selection. So with that, I don't get to crack jokes in this very often, but I got a really boring local government joke in there with the options because you really don't have another option with this one. This is something you have to do, and there's no alternatives. So
there was a joke in there?
There was.
Oh, really? I totally missed it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. Nobody reads these things anyways. Don't quit your job. All the local government nerds out there, I figured it's my last meeting, so I get to
don't quit your day job.
Line in his report.
So, very good. I presume there aren't going to be any questions with it because, like I said, you don't have another choice.
Thank you. The recommendation in front of us is that council approve the CAO selection of Kevin. Thank you. Nakanini, Director of Finance, as the city's financial officer, granting him the authority set out in Section 149 of the Community Charter. Councillor Newman, Councillor Etchart, any questions other than the pronunciation of the last name?
I just wanted to let you know that the mayor also called me Councillor Neufeld for the first 3 months, so it's all right.
Yes, quite some time. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I totally did. And her name tag's right there. Well, it's blocked by your cup. Would you like to say anything, Kevin? Welcome aboard.
I'm very excited to be here. Looking forward to working with council and being part of the city.
Excellent. Well, we're sure glad to have you. So.
Norm's glad to have you.
Get applause for showing up, Kevin.
Did we vote?
No.
Oh, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.4, development, 2102 Cootley Avenue, to be introduced by C.O. Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I am presenting on 2102 Cootley Avenue, which is formerly the Theatre Society parcel, which there was a resolution recently, and we're able to report out from a closed council meeting that this city has acquired that at the direction of council. Now, what we need to do at this point is take direction from you as to what you would like to see happen with that particular parcel in high level. There are a few different options that are available to council. So first, I'll give a little bit of context on the parcel itself. It is in really a prime area of the downtown, and it falls within the city center district zone within the zoning bylaw and the urban center OCP designation. So with that, it has zoning and OCP designation that would facilitate a broad range of uses at the highest density that is permitted within the city of Merritt. There is a catch to that, is that there are quite a number of covenants on the parcel that limit how it can be developed. And so as it stands right now, there are covenants restricting the potential building height on the parcel to 1 story, as well that limit the commercial uses that can be employed on that particular parcel to non-competing uses with a grocery store use. And so we have reached out to the director of real estate for the Pattison Food Group, who is the one that is ultimately in charge of those covenants, to discuss potential options for either removal or amendment of those covenants to see what the city would be able to potentially build on that parcel. Now, there are 4 different potential options that we'll go through here in a moment, but the reason we bring this forward now is because Council's aware that as part of the $24 million package that we received from the provincial government, 11.7, my apologies for not having that number on the tip of my tongue, was allocated for housing. Now, roughly 3 or 4 of that was allocated to the transitional housing program that was implemented at Diamond Vale Trailer Park. And so we're really happy with the success of that program, but we are at a spot where we need to deploy the last $3.2 million that is in that fund, because we don't want to give it back, is what it really comes down to. And so we've had preliminary discussions with the province that a traditional build solution, so long as it was implemented as rapidly as possible, would likely be suitable for that potential for using those funds. And so what we would like to explore on this property is some either mix of commercial and residential, where we could allocate the $3.2 million to the residential components of those products, or to that project, or an all residential project. So the council would have some discretion with that. So with that, if council does see fit to make this residential, it would largely remove the first 2 potential uses of this, which is you could make this a downtown park. It's a viable option for the property and would be consistent with the OCP. You could choose a 1-story building, which would comply with the existing covenant. You wouldn't need any special permissions in order to develop that, but it likely wouldn't be the highest and best use for the property, and I think that we could likely do more without too much effort in working with the Pattison Food Group. You could direct us to proceed with a 3-story building, which would require an amendment to the existing covenants, but in the discussions that we have had with the Pattison Food Group, we have a fairly high degree of confidence that by working with them, we would be able to get approval for the development of a 3-story building on that site. The primary things that they are concerned about are sight lines, both for their signage as well as the store itself. Overflow parking, and so they felt that at 3 stories there was likely going to be more ability to contain that parking. At 5 to 6 it may not be impossible, but we would be looking at underground parking solutions, which would potentially add to the cost and maybe block out more of the sight lines. And so they had the ability to say with some degree of confidence that the 3-story approach would likely receive approval from them. 5 to 6, they did not rule that out, but I didn't get great vibes that was going to be an easy process for us. And so with that, if you would like to see us kind of approach a more maximal density, we'll have to go back and forth and work out solutions that address their concerns. The next question for council after use is mixed use or purely residential. And so if you were to say select a 3-story or a 4 to 6-story option, are you wanting to see this all residential or a true mixed use building? We would, if you directed mixed use, we would work with the Pattison Food Group to make sure that there were appropriate measures in place to ensure that the potential commercial uses wouldn't be in competition with their grocery store. Or there's a few other categories as well that would be problematic. We've had preliminary discussions about things like pharmacies and others, that some Save-Ons do have pharmacies, but this one doesn't. And so would that be an issue? So there's some more technical discussions that would happen over time, but we are able to have those discussions with them because we're talking with the right people now. Then the last question for council is whether we would approach this as a city designed project or through an RFP. If it was a city designed project, we would take direction from council and work with necessary professionals in order to prepare design drawings for a building that fits the specific needs that you are proposing. It would give council a high degree of control over the project, but it might make it a little bit tougher to find development partners, because quite often they don't want to build somebody else's project, especially because they're not going to have the same degree of confidence in the pro forma returns of that project. And so generally speaking, it's tougher to find partners down that path. The other alternative is to go directly out to an RFP, acknowledging that we are seeking design build submissions along with a recommendations for proposed partnership, because of course the city would be injecting up to $3.2 million into the residential component of this building. So what would the ownership structure look like? What would the return on investment look like for both parties as part of that RFP process? And that would get scored by staff, and then it would come to council for ultimate selection of a proponent with various, there would presumably be various proposals as part of that. The advantage there is that you're going to see a lot more variance and different ideas for how the parcel could be used. You have the flexibility to choose one that may not be the very lowest cost option, but you're going to say, hey, that is exactly what we need over here. That really hits the buttons. And it would, you just see a larger range of potential proposals. As well, it does generally attract more developer interest to be part of that process. So this has been done successfully in a number of different municipalities, but we have never done a city-owned parcel design build RFP in the city of Merritt. And so we would largely be following the example of some of the Okanagan communities where this has become quite a popular tool for development of city-owned parcels. With that, the staff recommendation is to approach the 3-story build, because we think it's consistent with the character of the downtown as it stands right now, and as well would lead to the easiest approvals with the Pattison Food Group, that we would pursue a mixed-use building. We think that there would be good value in having new commercial, particularly where we know that there are a number of both commercial and nonprofit entities that might want to take advantage of that opportunity. As well, we would recommend that we go through this RFP process as opposed to the city-led design. But with that, it is all up to you now to tell us what you'd like to see.
Thank you for unpacking all of that for us, CEO Smith. Questions, Councillor Etchart?
I really like the idea of doing the 3-level development and putting it out for RFP, because when we were at FCM, there was one of the low-rise building developments, and I think it was mid-sized to up to 11 stories in Toronto, and they showed how they took the 1-level type plazas and making them into multi-unit type buildings that you guys didn't see from our former building planner, Mr. MacArthur. So Toronto's done that in a lot of spaces where they have setbacks, allowing sunlight and everything, and even modular construction. And there's so many different options that you can really get a lot of density to downtown. And one of the key indicators or that people have talked about in the past is having people living in your downtown to make it a more vibrant downtown. So I think if we have the space, and that's something that we consider, maybe having something of a 3-story to get approval from the Pattison Group and getting people downtown. And whatever option turns out to be, whether it's modular or mixed use with some commercial in the lower levels, but I'd like to see the 3-story. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Newman.
Just a few questions of staff. Thank you for the report. I'm very excited about this. I think this is going to be excellent for our downtown core. I'm just wondering, in the conversations, well, question number 1 is, in the conversations with the Pattison Group, was there any discussion at all in being in a partnership with them to develop the property? I'm thinking, sometimes putting our partners together, if they're concerned with signage and how we make that look, we could make it a 6-story with the option of having them being partners. It's just one thought.
It is not outside of the realm of possibility. It did not sound like there was immediate interest in their developing or being directly involved with the parcel. They don't actually have any ownership rights. The reason they have the covenants in the first place is because at one point that was all one large parcel, and so the covenant is something of a remnant. So I don't want to rule that out, and if council desires to have a conversation about that in order to potentially increase the density, that's something that we could do. I'd also just kind of note that in the recommendation, we do say 3-story, and then we kind of have a bracket in there, or whatever the highest that we think that we can easily achieve. If it turns out that, we have conversations and think, with this design, we think that you might be able to get 4 in that back and forth, we would certainly like to take advantage of that, but it's ultimately we're a little bit at their mercy. So
thank you for that. Okay, and then just going back to the underground parking, because that's something obviously we don't see in Merritt, which I'm just wondering, so the comments along that were, just if you could repeat them.
So for their parking, it's not a huge parcel, and if they were to have, let's say, a 4, 5, 6-story building, their concern is that there would be quite a bit of spillover into their parking lots by not just the residents, but when people come to visit, whatever the case is. And so it would not be a problem necessarily to implement underground parking. It's just going to add to the cost of the building overall. And I would be a little bit hesitant to want to design that as a city if we were to get a proponent as part of an RFP submission to say, hey, we can make a go of this, and here's how we're proposing to do that. And again, we loop in Pattison Food Group as part of those discussions and could come there. We certainly wouldn't be opposed to it, but I just think it's going to make the economics of the project a little bit more challenging.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much.
Councillor Charney.
I agree that a 3-story would be excellent. It would be nice to get higher, but I wonder about underground parking as far as the water table is. I think that would be a very big concern with underground parking, because it is fairly close to the river, and I think if you went underground parking, you would run into that. So I agree with the 3-story, or if you can get 4-story and an RFP. That's my opinion on it.
C.R. Smith, do you have your light on for reason? Thank you. Councillor Egan?
Thank you. I just wanted to add that I would like the 3-story but multi-purpose, and if it could be designed to add on later. You know, if you could have a flat roof and make sure that the construction would be able to hold more higher floors in the future as our population grows.
Councillor Petrosi?
Thanks for the report. I think you hit all the right points. Multi-purpose, 3-story RFP. And I thought of that right away as soon as I read the report. So thank you.
Councillor Rogan?
Okay, so we have a few options here. So if we decide to use the 3.2 million, so it should have to go through option B or C. So that could not go with option A, how I read here. So I am a numbers person, so I need to see financial implications here. So are we talking about 3.2? How far are we going to, that is going to take us if we decide to go with option C with the 3-story building?
It is not going to take us very far. I don't actually know, and that's a lot of what we would get as part of the RFP process. And so depending on the design, they're going to propose what their injection of capital is going to be, as well as the ownership structure, as well as what we would get in return for the 3.2. Now there's a range of options, and the reason I haven't included it here is could we secure in perpetuity a degree of these, or maybe it's forever that these are going to be affordable housing, or how are we going to do that? There is, they have some thoughts on that, and we're just kind of working through what the range of potential opportunities might be. So I don't want to create any public expectation as to what that might look at, because it was just a very preliminary discussion at the outset. But the short of it is I'm with you that economics is really what's going to drive the entirety of this project. The hope is that through RFP we can say, here's what the city contribution is going to be. We are going to select somebody on the best value return for that city's 3.2 million, while also trying to, you know, have aesthetic factors meet community use and benefit, and then some of these other factors that would ultimately come into play. But that you're not going to know the economics until we get those RFPs back and present them to you as a range of options. So it's just too premature for me to have a good answer at this point. My apologies.
Councillor Charney.
When you talk about housing, are we looking at a rental property or units that we would sell?
Unless council wanted to put a specific restriction on, which you could, as a condition of the RFP, we were intending to leave that open because we could see a case right now. If you look at our housing needs assessment, purpose-built rental, there is a need for, but we've had more purpose-built rental come online in recent months than we have had other property types. And so we would largely be trusting the market research of the proponents that are making that to say, hey, here's what we think the city needs most of right now and is going to be of the highest and best value for the community. And so our intent was not to put any restrictions on it must be rental or it must be for purchase. We're kind of hoping to see the market research that would come from the proponents.
Councillor Newman.
What was the last date or the last time that the housing needs update was completed?
I believe it was a 2020. Yeah, I think it's a 2020 or a 2021 assessment. So it's not old, but it's generally updated every 5 years, and there has been a fair bit of change.
And I'm almost wondering, like going through that, obviously we've had a large development up the hill that's largely vacant right now, from what I've been told at least. I shouldn't say that, but at least from what I've been told. We have lots of houses around, as much as there's not a lot of availability necessarily. I think a lot has changed in the last couple of months, and I would really like to put some onus on looking into that a little further before we decide. You know, I am in favor of the mixed use and 3-4-story. It sounds great. However, at the same time, I'm just wondering, are we going to oversaturate our market currently right now within the next 5 years that all of a sudden something else detrimental happens, right? I'd like to put a lot of effort into that, though I think finding out first, I mean, I assume the people who would respond might have a little understanding, but I really think we might have to do a little overview on Merritt as a whole with the housing first.
I think that that's a totally fair assessment. In truth, I love leaning on private to do this work because I think they do a really good job on it because they have a profit incentive. And so we could go do that and tell them what we want, or we could have them tell us what we think is going to be needed because of their market research. And so I think that you're actually going to land in a similar spot either way, but one you're going to have to pay for and one they'll be directly involved and a partner in. What I can say is what has mostly come on has been market rate rentals. And so I know where there is a need and it's below market rate, but whether that's something that would be both entertained by the developer as well as the Patterson Food Group is something that needs to be discussed in more detail, because I just don't have an answer for that right now.
Thank you. So the recommendation, we've all kind of mentioned it, but there's still lots of information we brought back to us as we move along on this. This is just getting the ball starting to roll at this point. So,
correct. Okay. So I would anticipate that the next time you would see this would be when we come back with RFP submissions for this property. We would likely have an update for you, but it wouldn't be a time to provide additional resolutions unless there was something, crucial that changed and we found out that, hey, yes, they are now open to affordable housing or whatever the case is. We would probably give you an opportunity there. So that's when I would anticipate the next decision point.
And what would be the time frame that you would attach to that RFP?
I have a little bit of hesitancy to answer that because ultimately this is a bit of a hybrid project. Recovery is likely going to lead because it's the housing dollars, but development services and other departments would be involved. And we're not 100% sure if I'll do it, but I've been asked to actually stay on and lead this one afterwards, but we'll see what ultimately happens. Depending on what the availability and who's going to be driving it, I don't have a specific answer, but I anticipate that the province wants to do this fairly quickly in order to utilize those 3.2 million of funds for a housing purpose.
Thank you.
So we do have a recommendation in front of us. Your light's still on there, CEO Smith? Oh, thank you. I was just wondering if you had some add. That council direct staff to work with the Patterson Food Group towards the development of a 3-story mixed-use building at 2102 Kootley Avenue, or whatever is the highest density that will receive simple approval from the Patterson Group, and that council direct the remaining provincial housing fund, 3.2 million, to be allocated to the residential portions of this project, and that council direct staff, after all necessary preparations to have been made, to publish an RFP to seek design, build, development partners for building on this site. There you go. Councillor Etchert, Councillor Neufeld, Newman, Councillor Newman. Thank you for the. I was doing so well. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for the report and thank you for the stimulating conversation. 9.5, check signing authority to be introduced by Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, over to you.
The City of Merritt's Bank, the Royal Bank of Canada, requires a motion that establishes the authorized person to conduct business with the bank and to list those authorized to sign any agreements, documents, and instruments. And the City of Merritt's policy for check signing authority is attached to this report and defines who is authorized to sign checks, the level of authority to approve transfers, to approve electronic payments, and undertake investments. The Royal Bank of Canada's resolution regarding banking is attached and requires the Chief Administrative Officer and the Manager of Financial Services to attest to the resolution passing at a meeting of the Council. The elected officials are the Mayor and the 6 councillors, and the appointed officials are Sean Smith, Chief Administrative Officer, Kevin Netkamimi, Director of Finance, Norman Thompson, Manager of Financial Services, Sean Strang, Deputy Director of Finance, temporarily filling the Recovery Manager role, and Greg Lois, Director of Corporate Services. So the current officials are listed, and the only one we're adding is Kevin as the new Finance Director.
Thank you very much. I just had a chilling thought that soon I'm going to have to say Mr. Nakayemi. Nakamimi. Anyway, I'll get there. Probably 6 months, but we'll get there. Maybe more. Any questions on this? It's pretty straightforward, I think. I will read the recommendation. Recommendation that Council amends the signing authorities for the City of Merritt to the current elected officials, Mayor and Council, and appointed officials, municipal employees, as identified in the check signing policy. and that council move to appoint the listed elected officials and the appointed officials to be authorized to sign the Royal Bank of Canada banking documents on behalf of the City of Merritt. Councillor Richard? Oh, I saw Councillor Petrosi nodding his head. It's almost as good as eyebrows, so I'll take it. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Yeah, my signature. Notices of motion. Any notice of motion? Notice of motion. Reports from council. Who would like to go first here?
No,
Nope.
I'm not going first.
All right, I'll go first.
You clear a bunch off for all.
Okay, so June 14th, council to council with Coldwater Indian Band. It was very enjoyable. They had a great lasagna. I cannot remember the lady who made it, but boy, it was good, and it was a really good meeting. And I think we touched on a lot of great things out there, saw a lot of heart. June 15th and 16th, I was at TNRD, whoop-dee. June 16th, I had a meeting with Minister Rankin, the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs. It was a very good kind of a last-second meeting. He was in town and he stopped by, and he suggested that we go see him at UBCM, which we will be doing that as well. June 19th, Trans Mountain Workshop over in Kamloops. It was kind of a slow-down departing. You have something in here that came from that. So just letting us know, they wanted to do a thing about what worked, what didn't work, and it was quite good. June 20th, we had a supper with Jackie Taggart and friends and some of her caucus. The next morning, June 21st, Jackie Taggart and her caucus and some of council went on a flood tour to look at where we are and where we're not, and it was kind of good to take them around. June 22nd, myself and Councillor Etchart and Councillor Petrosi attended MSS Grad Night. Which was awesome. It was a very, very enjoyable, and it was nice to see all those kids. Some of them really had some really good ways of celebrating. June 26th, Minister Ma, the bridge announcement, which was very nice to have her here and to receive the funds to start moving the bridge forward. That's something that I think we've all been looking forward to and all working hard for. So thank you to Minister Ma for coming again. I think this is the third or fourth time she's been here, and I'm really glad that she showed up this morning. I met with Minister Kang. We received a little over $3 million for a water meter project that we will be working on over a while. This is nothing that's going to happen tomorrow, just so we're aware of that fact that this is just a funding to get to a position. July 1st will be at the park for those that are around. I see here there's going to be some great items that are going on, so be there. I do believe late at night there will be a movie out, so bring your bug dope and whatever, and have a good time. Just for a moment though, I would like to even though we're very far away, I would like to let the people in Manitoba know how our hearts go out to them for the loss of the 16 seniors on the bus crash that took them so quickly, and this leaves a big hole in people's lives. So I would like to let them know that Mayor and Council in Merritt, BC are well aware that this happened, and our prayers go out to them, and we will think of them, and hopefully they can recover from this, and we'll move on. No gas thing tonight because I simply didn't have any time. So who's got a light flash? Oh, Councillor Charney, who said she didn't have anything.
I forgot to do this, but Mayor Getz triggered my mind on a few things. On the June 14th, I also went to the Council to Council, and that was absolutely excellent lasagna. It rivals the Grand Pizza lasagna. So they're fighting words. But it was a good meeting. I went to Boston Pizza to meet with Jackie Taggart and quite a few other MLAs. A stimulating conversation. Food was great. Minister Ma met with her just yesterday. Yes, just yesterday at the bridge, and it's nice to see that the bridge will finally begin, most likely in 2024, but it's nice to know that we do have the funding for the bridge and that it is going forward. So if I tell it anything else, I cannot remember.
No problem.
So that's it.
Councillor Newman?
Omitting everything that everybody else has already posted on. June 20th, I attended the food bank meeting. They had two delegations, which was Sean O'Keefe and Terry Baker from the Housing First program. I'm just giving a little bit of an update on that. There's 3 members of the food bank right now are away at a conference. Let's see, they're working on cleaning up their bank accounts and signing authorities. And they're also diligently working on creating policies and procedures for both the board and the staff. So I was pretty happy to see that they are working hard at it in the background. So that was good. They're also still trying to increase their membership, so I am putting it out there as a challenge because I know Dana once did a challenge, so I'm also putting it out there for a whole $5 their membership costs are, so I'm encouraging everybody on council, and because I sit there, I see the names, I'm encouraging us all to get memberships there. You can attend the AGM and then therefore have a voice at their meetings. The Farmers Market Coupon Program is underway as well, and they have 70 participants this year, which was a little bit up. And then they did mention again concerns about the safety of their workers at the food bank, and then also the red bins that we've discussed at council. So there was a brief discussion in regards to the fact that we really need to get on the cleanup program or removal, whatever we've decided to go with, but to get on that because they're finding extra debris and people and everything else in and around them. So that was that. And then just going back to the meeting from the Coldwater Indian Band on the 14th, that I would like to see an action item come out of that, and that we just send them a letter of thanks for the meeting, and that we send a follow-up request because they did say they would like to meet with us early in 2024. So I want to make sure that that is documented and accounted for. And then also on the 26th, which was yesterday as well, we were working through just the recruiting process for the city, and I think it was great to be a part of that. So thank you very much. And my one last thing is just so everybody knows that it is Sean's last meeting tonight, and we are going to very much miss him. So thank you for guiding us this far and then leaving us.
Ms. Brick has an update for you on the bins. There we go.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have been in contact with the Canadian Diabetes Association, and they have replaced all of the bins in the city of Merritt, so they're all new ones. Okay. They're blue ones. If there continues to be any problems, I can certainly provide the contact information for the person who's directly responsible for making sure that it gets managed well here in our city.
Excellent. And have located.
Gotta push that button.
So do we know if any of the locations have changed? Are they the exact same locations, just new bins?
The locations have not changed as far as I'm aware. It's new bins that are harder to pull materials out of.
Excellent.
So they are the upgraded bins.
Okay, well, I will pass that on to the food bank. That's great news. Thank you very much for that.
Councillor Hogan?
I am next, okay.
Everybody's not blinking anymore. So I guess it's you.
Okay, so I will be brief. So June 14, that was the council with Coldwater Indian Band. June 15, I attended the BC Interior Community Foundation annual general meeting. It was very well attended and provided a lot of information regarding all the projects and other initiatives that they are working, not only in Kamloops, but also in the whole region. So they have over $654,000 to distribute in the region. Recipients of these grants in our area include the Merritt Youth Soccer Association, the Nicola Family Therapy, amongst others. They will be celebrating their 40th anniversary next year. So, and on yesterday, on June 26, I attended the Millsboro Bridge announcement with Minister Mann. Thank you.
Councilor Petrosi.
Wednesday, June 14th, pizza with a cop. You forgot that. You were there.
I was.
And, Councilor Etchart. And that same night, we were at the council-to-council meeting at the Coldwater Indian Band. Wednesday, June 21st, I attended the Indigenous Peoples Day 10-year celebration at Central Park, and did have some words with the chief of the Cooks Ferry. I'm not sure, we talked about that, whether she's the chief still or not, but I did talk with her a little bit while I was there, and great time. Attended the grad ceremony Thursday the 22nd, and didn't realize there's 7 families that I know in town that their kids were graduating. I had no idea that
sneaks up on you.
Yeah, time's going by so fast. The bridge announcement yesterday, and meeting with talking about the new CAO hiring. yesterday also. Thank you. Councilor Richard.
I mean, really, what's there left to say after all you guys take up all the topics? Holy cow. Yikes. We've had a really good few weeks, really busy. There's lots of other things. The Arts Council had an event recently, so that was good. Tons of artists from the high school, talented group. Also, I thought I would also mention, to elaborate for July 1st, there's a lot happening in the park. There's been a lot of work with different groups, radio, media. Anyway, there's going to be, starting from the breakfast at 7:30, whatever, early enough, and then activities in the park, games, and I think if people can attend, you should, because it should be fun. We might even have some sun and some prizes, so there you go. So just show up. I don't think there's going to be a dunk tank this year, but some of us did it last year. If any of you guys remember, probably not. But anyway, Manuel smiles. Yeah, he remembers. Yeah, you weren't, but the water was cold. Just trust me. Anyway, but it was good. People laughed, and it was fun. So show up and have fun.
Councilor Egan.
And last but not least, I think, I didn't get to go to a lot of these events that all of you had mentioned. I did go to the Minister Pizza Night at Boston Pizza with Jackie Teegert and the other MLAs. And I went to yesterday with the bridge announcements with Minister Ma, and then the afternoon with, actually right following up here with her afterwards was pretty interesting as well. And then the policy review, and also, pardon? Yeah, we did policy review. But I also want to congratulate all the grads of 2023. There were also a couple and the parents and volunteers who dressed this Civic Center up to the nines. And it was really, really well done. Also, there was a couple other events that I really wanted to go to. One was the Indigenous Day. Unfortunately, something came up and I couldn't get there. As well as on Sunday, I want to congratulate the Love to Dance group on their 10-year anniversary. I wanted to go to that, but unfortunately, I was called out to do something else. So hopefully, this next couple of weeks will be more involved for me with council. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councilor Newman, more to add?
No, I just have a question of staff. I have a note, and sorry, Councilor Petrosi brought something up. We had a request that we were supposed to get in contact with Christopher Stokes, the Restorative Justice Rep, at the beginning of June, and I don't know that we did that.
Who was the request from?
I can't remember. I just had a note here that it came up in conversation, and I'm not sure if it was from one of your meetings where you went to the council. Help me out on the word for.
Right. It's restorative justice, First Nations.
Yeah,
Tell us what I need to get.
So yeah, we're going to invite them as a delegation. I think was the hope out of it. And it's Christopher Stokes. Yep. He's the Restorative Justice Rep. Sorry, I think it may have changed, but I'm not sure. But that's my note.
This is the first I'd heard, but we can always talk with somebody. So I don't have any concerns with that.
I'm going to put Cyril Smith on the spot here. This new council is not aware of some of the past funding that has done by the old council. Now, there's another announcement tomorrow morning, Harjit Sajan. I'm just wondering if you could update council on what that is, because that came to me out of the blue, and I have no idea what it is about. So if you could possibly fill us in.
I can. I don't know if I'm technically supposed to until tomorrow, but is the world going to end? No.
Do you want to wait?
You guys aren't putting anything out until tomorrow? We're good.
Do you want to wait till the close?
No, okay. It's fine. The truth is, we're still figuring out exactly what this is for, because we had put in a grant application for the West Merritt Active Transportation Path, which is currently being constructed right now. We had a second application go in. We just didn't ever hear back, so we thought that meant we didn't get it. I think what they're announcing is that we did, in fact, get that. I don't even know exactly what the amount is, but it looks preliminary like it might be somewhere between $600,000 and $900,000 towards a project that we already have funded. So, really cool problem to have. The question is going to be, how do we pivot that into a connecting project, which we are looking at on opportunities, because I know you guys have talked about Collettville and some of the other things in the area. So we are figuring out still what exactly this is, how much it's for, and how we might be able to change the scope to be able to put those funds to the best possible use. So we will have a report come to you when I'm not so blind.
What time and where is this tomorrow? Because I know we're all together.
It's in Williams Lake. We're not even going to be attending it. So, yeah, it's in Williams Lake, I think at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock, something like that. Now, I did ask if I needed to attend, because if it was like for $15 million, I would have driven at 4 o'clock this morning to meet it. But it's, just so we're keeping score here, we've had almost $14 million in 3 days. So that's pretty good. Councilor Egan.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to digress. I had a meeting today with Ian Ward, and he apparently has been doing a lot of town cleanup on his own over the last few years, and the mayor tells me that he's been recognized and mentioned before about all his good work in trying to keep his eyes and ears open to businesses and streets and houses and things that need repair, or where there's garbage dumped, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to pass that on. He does list a number of areas where he thinks that we could improve. So I just thought I would pass that on. And I thank him in front of the whole city for what he's been doing for our town, keeping us up to date.
Thank you. I mean, I think we've all seen him out there with his little scissors and everything. And for those who wish to get a hold of me, my email is michael.getz@merritt.ca, not Mike Getz. If you're sending that to me on that, I have not received one email from this gentleman. So obviously it's going to the wrong address, because I respond the very same day as I do all my messages same day. So that it's on the city's site. My address is there, and if you've gotten it wrong and I don't answer you back, it's because you're not getting it to me. So, Councilor Newman.
Just a question in regards to, Councilor Egan brought up the cleanup. We were supposed to clean up a street a while ago, and it got weathered us out, I think.
It just hasn't got, if one of council would like to take that on, please.
Well, no, if we, do we have a date or a time? Or?
If someone from council wants to take that on, please, because I simply don't have the time. No, it's the adopt a road. It's the adopt a road, and traditionally we have done it before. Councillor, there's a weed in my yard. Councillor, anyways, she's the one who ran it. Councillor Prowl. Anyways, she ran it, but if there's anyone on council that would like to get a hold of Jamie over at the Civic Center to arrange that, feel free. Councilor, look at that. Councilor Newman has her light on. She's going to do it.
I'm going to arrange it for all of council to do it.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
It's your bailiwick. You go crazy. You got that right. So.
Look out, Jamie. Here I come.
12.1 UBCM meeting requests. So these are information items. That and the Trans Mountain construction letter, which was just part of their closed down deal. The meeting requests have to be in by the 30th, correct, Mr. Laus? Yes. So these are the people that we have, and I got your email as well, which went to Mr. Laus on Harry Baines. Okay, good. So the whole idea here is we know that for a fact we're not going to see them all. There's going to be a billion other people trying to get in with this. The one I don't see on here is, oh no, I do, sorry. So we will make the application with a very bare bones of what we would like to talk about, because we've all talked about what we want to talk about, we all know. And we will get that in here. When we do get the approvals, we will make a very substantial presentation with very nice pictures and everything else. And we will all go over this plan long before we get there. And it all depends how many we see. What I would like to have is each councillor present at each minister, so everybody gets their feet in the ring. It's a good thing to do. So that is moving on. Is there any questions on that at this point in time? C.O. Smith?
I would just make one recommendation, is that knowing what you're going to talk about is half the battle, but really highly recommend that council work on the specific request that you will make for each one. You don't have to do it until you know who you're going to get, but quite often that doesn't get confirmed until beforehand, so like sometimes even days beforehand. Mm-hmm. So if you can put your mind to what you are going to ask, because that's what you craft the whole proposal around, and if you don't have something good to ask, we all look dumb. that is the UBCM mantra, have something good to ask.
So I did send out an email there, so if you still feel that you drop a line tomorrow to me so I can get it to Greg on your specific asks, if there's anything that we're not going to cover. Also, if we are going to not see one of these ministers and we're very strongly attached that we need to, we could request a staff meeting, which is not the same, but at least we get our message through. Now, I'll have to warn you as well, UBCM is extremely busy. Councillor Newman and Councillor Etchart will, we sometimes have to be pulled out in the middle of resolution session for this, and sometimes you have 4 or 5 right in a row. So it becomes a very busy time when we start doing this kind of thing, but it's what we're there for. This is the big leagues of civil politics. This is the most important thing to be at, and there's lots of other things that go on with it, but we'll be prepared.
We should all be well versed in each one because we don't know which one we're going to get.
Well, that's where we'll spin the wheel of doom for you. Councillor Attorney.
So are we going to take each topic here and then sit down as a group and develop our question, or is that left up to staff?
No, I think this will be council driven. Yeah, this will be council driven and prepared by staff, but this is council's decisions. Yeah, we'll definitely meet long before, several times probably, before we go to UBCM. I got embarrassed once and never want to get embarrassed again, never. So we will be ironclad, ready to roll. And we will have a whole plan all laid out for us all the way through. So anything else on that? Anyone? I dare you. No one? Okay. Closed session. A recommendation that the meeting, what's that? I already said it's already there, if anybody had anything on it.
So quick, you missed it.
Yeah, I blazed through it, 12.2, I said if there's any, and you kind of got it already. I think you guys have already had this before. I think it's Silget was there. Recommendation that the meeting be closed to the press and public under section 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality of the community charter. Can I have a motion? Councillor Etchart, Councillor Newman, all those in favor? Opposed? Closed session in 5 minutes.
Thanks, guys.